Today is another exciting morning, and we're happy to say that we're privileged to have Michael A. Porter for a second bite of the cherry. For those of you who've been following, you recall we had him last week where he discussed for us how to essentially halt the turnover of your talent. Now, tell you a few things about Michael. He's an international management development trainer, writer, speaker, globalist, and people expert, one of the leading non-academic global training and management development consultants, having worked in an advisory capacity for a variety of global organizations. He holds an MBA and a first degree in business studies from the University of Liverpool with an MA in organizational analysis and behavior from the University of Lancaster in the UK. Now, for this morning's presentation, I'm going to highlight certain aspects of his CV. He has a sporting career to add to his academic and management practice. He played in both the Football League and Rugby League, and he also coached football as well as skiing, not to talk of cricket as well. But the man will talk about himself before we talk about the topic. This morning, we're trying to understand sports management and the relationship it has to management in the business world. In fact, he would be giving us a case study of the Big Four in England to glean some important management lessons from the four approaches or these four teams. Michael, it's great to have you again on the Management Development Month. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Bernard, and thank you very much for inviting me again, and good morning to all the listeners here in Ghana.
It's not very common to have a management practitioner of your caliber who has a genuine sporting career as both a player and a coach. Tell me a bit about some of the stuff you did in sports.
Yes, well, you know, as a young man, I suppose you could say I had a talent, and when I was in my early teens, I played like most young boys do for their local team, their school team. And one day I was playing for my local team when a scout of one of the then English First Division football clubs came to watch the game and watch me play. After the game, he came and spoke to me, and then spoke to my father, of course. And the next thing I knew, I'd been invited for a trial with the Bolton Wanderers football team. All of a sudden, I got another interest from Everton to go for a trial for them, and so I was toying with the idea. I went to Belfield, to the Everton training ground. I played one or two games for the Everton youth team, but eventually I had to make a decision on who I should sign schoolboy forms for. I was age 14 at this time. So I eventually plumped for Bolton Wanderers and signed as a schoolboy, age 14, which effectively tied me to that club until I was 16, until leaving school.
Interesting stuff. And then you had a very prolific scoring career, and then you entered coaching as well.
Yes.
Tell me about your transition from being a simple footballer to a coach.
Yeah. Okay, well, my football career, as I say, emanated at Bolton Wanderers and lasted for 2 to 3 years. I played over 150 games for the club. Didn't make the first team debut, but played for all the youth teams and the reserve teams, and I think something like 54 goals in 150 games, something like that. Having then not made the grade as a professional, of course, it was disappointing. I then took a job up in corporate life, but continued my football as a semi-professional player. So I did keep my hand in the sport. Effectively played in the non-leagues as a semi-professional for 8 to 10 years, and then retired from football aged 28. Went on then to play rugby. However, during that time, after I'd retired, I had a number of requests to help coach younger players, and one day I got a phone call out of the blue asking me would I be prepared to manage a UK-based team, under 21s, going to play in a European competition in West Germany. And so I thought about it, and although I had no formal coaching qualification, I'd been well coached myself, a little bit of experience, accepted the job, and then appointed my own, like most of the big managers do, and appointed your own team, support team. So my best friend Mark, I appointed him as this assistant coach. By the way, he's now chief executive of the Hong Kong Football Association. So he's to thank me for appointing him
Really?
as so that's Mark Sutcliffe. My brother was appointed as the physio, and Mark's brother was appointed as the press attaché, and I had one or two other trusted colleagues who came as support coaches. So we went off to West Germany to represent England in a eight country tournament, a mini Euro tournament where there was 4 teams in 2 leagues. Top 2 teams qualified for the semi-final and went on to the final. We were the underdogs, and somehow we sort of made it through to the. We on goal average we finished second, so we did more than what we'd expected. I'd coached them discipline. Because as a young man, I was taught how important it is to be disciplined with yourself and with your team players. So we instilled discipline. We instilled teamwork. We had good communication. We all knew what we were doing. And although the team wasn't a team of stars, there were some very good players and 1 or 2 outstanding, 1 or 2 good team players. We knew what our strengths and weaknesses were, so we played to our strengths. We got through to the semi-final, and I think in semi-final we played France, who were the favourites to go through and win this. And of course, I was expecting to lose, but I'd have been pleased with reaching the semi-finals. Somehow we got to half-time. It was 0-0, but it was a bit like the Barcelona and Chelsea game when Barcelona had more or less 90% of the play, and Chelsea somehow, somewhere, managed to score a goal and go through, on the 2 legs. So anyway, eventually we held out, and it was 0-0, 5 minutes to go, and we got a corner against the run of play and scored 1-0.
Wow.
We're in the final.
Interesting.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And in the final we played Germany, the host nation, and of course I was dreading the fact that it would go to penalties, because we all know what happens when England and Germany play and it's penalties. There's only one winner. However, the Germans were the favourites. They had a strong team. Before the game, our star player, a guy called Smith, famous English name, he was the guy who was scoring all the goals. But I said to the team, I said, look, if we get to the final, we have to show even more discipline than what we've had, in the pre-rounds. So I said, it's important on the final, I want you to all to come looking smart with your blazers, your shirts and your ties, club ties. I want you all looking smart. And I want you to be at the ground at least 2 hours before the game so we can do proper preparation. And they all turned up on time, but our top player, Smith, to a certain extent I was disappointed. He turned up with a pair of jeans with holes in the knees and a white T-shirt. All the other players were immaculately dressed. Now, what do you do as a coach and a motivator and a manager? Do you accept the fact that your star player can do what he wants? He was undoubtedly the best player in the team, or do you make a stand? Now, I ask the listeners, what would you do if you were managing the team? My decision, having consulted with my colleague and friend Mark Sutcliffe, was that Smith would not play in the starting lineup. So when I read the team out and I left it to last minute, I could see them all sat there, and at the end, Smith's name wasn't mentioned. Well, body language says everything, doesn't it? I see his face. I see the face of my players, and they're saying, "Why have you left our best player out of the final? We've reached here." Well, I've made my decision. We have to live with it. Smith was on the substitutes bench, but I was determined only to use him if need be. I wanted to a certain extent, teach somebody a lesson, And as a coach and a manager, like Sir Alex says, it's either my way or the highway, and people have come along the way, very strong characters like Paul Ince and Roy Keane and David Beckham, Ruud van Nistelrooy, but there's only been one leader at Manchester United, and I agree with what Sir Alex says, the team is bigger than any one player, and it's absolutely true. I made my stance. Smith was on the substitutes bench. The game started, the final, there was lots of people, lots of coverage, press and media. It was a big day for us. And the Germans were very strong. Their skipper, who was a centre-half, was one of the best centre-halves I've ever seen. Very, very good. And it was like the Alamo, it was Germany, Germany, Germany. Our goalkeeper was man of the match after 20 minutes. He was making so many good saves. And we managed to get to half-time. We were 1-0 down, and I thought, well, we've done really well. And I thought, I'm going to stick with my guns. The team's playing well. I'm not going to make any changes. We had a big motivational chat at half-time, and we all got behind the team, building on our strengths, on our defence, looking for the break to maybe score the away goal. It went into the second half, and Germany scored again. 10 minutes into the second half, 2-0. And I really, heart of hearts, thought, I was chewing gum a little bit like Sir Alex was, nervously on the sidelines. Not a lot you can do. But somehow, we managed to pull one back. With about 20 minutes to go, we made it 2-1. And then something strange happened. The centre-half and their captain, who'd picked up a yellow card in the first half, made a very, very rash challenge on our winger, right winger. And he unfortunately picked up, or fortunately for us, he picked up another yellow card. That meant he was sent off. They had their best player and defence leader off the pitch. We were 2-1 down, and I could see Smith walking around hungrily on the touchline. So I decided I must act. So I said to Smith, get warmed up.
Okay.
And he's up like a flash, rushing up and down, all the exercises. And the next minute he's on the pitch. His first touch of the game, unbelievable. His first touch of the game, there was a corner, came in, hit him on the head, and went into the top corner. 2-2. 2-2. He came up to me, he ran the length of the pitch to me, and he went in my face, celebrating his goal.
Yeah.
So now we're in the last 5 minutes of the tournament. It's going either way. They're down to 10 men. We're putting the pressure on. With 1 minute to go, or maybe the second minute of injury time, I can't remember, we scored the winning goal. Have a guess who scored it?
Smith. This is incredible.
Well, yeah.
This is incredible.
So we came home with the European trophy. So.
And this was your first coaching experience?
This was basically my first, albeit a youth team. We're not talking about fully professional players. We're talking about under-21s. I stopped coaching at that point, mainly because I didn't really think about going into it as a career, because I'd already by that time had my business. I was working in corporate life.
So you entered management. The rest is history. You did some coaching as a key instructor as well.
That's right, yes.
Okay,
yes.
But I just want to fast forward quickly now. So this morning we want to talk about the lessons we can pick from the management styles and the way the four business entities are run.
Yes.
And because of your experience as both a coach and a player and a management consultant, it's easy to see that you're the best person to do this. So how are you going to approach this? Are you going to do, maybe let's start with Man United.
Yeah. I we've been doing some work. Of course now I'm no longer a footballer, although I'm still a former player. Committee member of the Bolton Wanderers Football Association, Football Club Association, which I get involved with. But these days, I'm a little older now, I'm more interested in global issues, management development issues, writing, and and speaking and training. Particularly here in Ghana, I'm providing a lot of coaching, management development, and training for a number of businesses: Unibank, Labadi Beach Hotel, CFAO. MTN, to name but a few. And I think there is a significance between the way we manage our people in the business and actually the way that people are managed on the sports field. There is there is a significant similarity in terms of how we should coach and motivate our staff. So if we can start off with Manchester United, of course, I'm not, although I'm from Manchester, of course, I'm not a Manchester United, I'm not an Arsenal, Chelsea or Liverpool fan. So whatever information I'm giving you here, I'm completely impartial. Although I do have a big interest
You live in Carrington.
I live in Carrington, and my offices actually overlook the Manchester United training ground. So we're very well positioned to be able to see what's going on. So we'll start with Man U. Man U have won the European Cup, or as it's called now, the UEFA Champions League, 2 times in the last 15 years. The Premier League champions 12 times in the last 21 years, and runners-up 2012 went down to the wire. They thought they'd won it, and Manchester
Sergio
City
Aguero had other ideas.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
The owners of the Glazer family, American owner, and of course Sir Alex Ferguson has been in charge there since 1986.
Wow.
However, as we all know, he's recently retired, and we have a new manager coming in now called David Moyes, who's done a very good job at Everton Football Club. Man United, you know, their financial analysis as an organisation, 2012, their net profit was £23.3 million, colossal amount of money, but their debt was quite staggering, nearly £360 million in debt.
Wow.
You know, so that is a big consideration to have. You know,
but what are the major sources of their revenues?
well, the major sources of revenue, actually, and it's quite interesting. They seem to be around about sort of 33% is for match day. So, you know, that's their ground capacity is around about 83,000 now. The Theatre of Dreams on a Saturday you'll find full to the rafters. So, you know, they're maximising their profit, and of course there's sponsorship, and there's during the game, and there's corporate guests. That accounts for the match day accounts for 33%. Broadcasting, which Sky TV and radio, television, etc., accounts for 36% of their income, and the rest of it comes from commercial sponsorship, 31%. So the breakdown is quite similar. As a company, you know, Manchester United has a very, very strong brand. You know, they have a global community of nearly 660 million followers. Huge following. The passionate community provides MU with a worldwide platform to generate significant revenue. They attract large companies, leading companies as sponsors, such as Nike, Aon, DHL, and so on. They have a very, very strong global brand, and the global brand and intellectual property rights has been valued at around about £412 million. Wow. And they've got the first sports brand in the world. So it's a huge entity. Sir Alex Ferguson's training approach, and let's talk a little bit about that. You know, he will probably go down as one of the, whether you like Manchester United or not, as probably one of the most successful of all football managers.
Coaches of all time, actually.
Coaches of all time, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, you know, he's a winner. Sir Alex doesn't like to lose, you know. And
a bad loser.
You don't often see him on the post-match interview if he's lost. He
He's
normally
not a very
wheels...
gracious loser. His post-match interviews, red-faced, and always blaming somebody for his defeat.
Yes. Yeah. So normally it's Mike Phelan or his number two who appears if they've lost. If they've won, of course, you see him there, you know, and he's happy to give his interview. He likes to create a winning atmosphere within that dressing room, and I think that has been one of the biggest success stories that we've had. He says no player is bigger than the team, and he says it's my way or the highway. And you know, he's stuck to his guns, and top players have come and gone over his 20 plus years tenure there. He ensures an open and honest dialogue with his players. His view is that he likes to mix homegrown talent like Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, David Beckham, to name but a few, the Neville brothers, with big signings, big international global signings. Eric Cantona, Van Persie, Wayne Rooney to a certain extent, who comes from the other city, Liverpool, Peter Schmeichel, you know.
So it's a blend of local talent and international stars.
Yes, local talent and international stars. He believes that giving your talent the tools to do the job properly. Okay. And he says that, you know, if you've got talented people to support them, you need talented backroom staff and professional backroom staff, talented coaches, talented managers, talented medics, talented support staff.
Interesting.
And he says to get the best out of a player is if you can surround talent with talent, you can make a good player in a mediocre team become a star player in a top team. You mentioned before Antonio Valencia. You know, look at how his game has improved since he joined Manchester United. And if you're playing with, even at my level, when I was playing, you know, against the youth teams of Manchester City, Manchester United and Liverpool, you know, if you had talents in your team, you know, you would become a better player. You know, so that's Sir Alex's approach. What qualities are needed by a coach to succeed at the top level? And this is the same in business to a certain extent. Because remember, a line manager in a business is the same as a coach of a football team. Sir Alex's views are quite simple. He said that you need to have good observation. You need to be able to watch what's going on. You need to have good delegation skills. We cannot do everything ourselves. even in a business world. Delegation is a powerful tool. It's also a development opportunity for somebody else. You need to have passion about what you do. Now, whether you like or dislike Sir Alex Ferguson, nobody can ever criticise him for not having passion.
Incredibly passionate.
Passionate, yeah.
Chomping at his chewing gum.
Chopping at his chewing gum, shaking his hands, and all the things, shouting at the referees,
arguing with other coaches.
Arguing with other coaches, he has passion. He lives the game. Extreme passion. He also has imagination. He can visualise. The skill he had was visualising his team for the next season before they come onto the pitch.
Exactly.
He knew how to sign good players. He knew how to offload players when they'd probably come up to their sell-by date. With all due respect, players do eventually come up to their sell-by date, and he knows when to offload them and bring in newer players. Mm-hmm. And he's a very good communicator.
Yep.
So
even though his Scottish accent's difficult to discern.
Even though his Scottish accents are sometimes difficult to understand.
Yeah.
And of course he was a player himself, playing for Aberdeen and top level. He was also a good businessman. His best deal was signing Cristiano Ronaldo back in 2003 for 12.25 million. And actually selling him 6 years later in 2009 to Real Madrid for 82.5 million. 70 million profit.
Over 6 years.
Over 6 years.
On one player.
What a return on investment.
Incredible.
Any businessman would be absolutely delighted with that.
This is the Management Development Month. We're talking to Michael A. Porter, who is helping us appreciate management lessons from the top four in England. And being a former footballer and a coach himself, there are few people better positioned to discuss this. He's just finished taking us through Man United. So what's the next team you're going to look at? Well,
I know here in Ghana, because I've been coming to Ghana now for about 6 or 7 years. I know there's a strong following for Arsenal. And so I'd like to talk very briefly about the scenes behind the Arsenal Football Club.
Interesting.
Okay, Bernard. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, of course, Arsenal have had yesteryear success. 3 times in the last 20 years, they've been Premier League champions. Well, anyway, the owners are Arsenal Holdings PLC. The team manager, Arsene Wenger, he's been in charge since '96, so that's 17 years in charge.
Okay.
The financial analysis is quite interesting if we compare it with Manchester United. The net profit of Arsenal last year was 36.6 million. Compared to Man United's 23.3 million, so nearly 50%.
Net profit?
Yeah, net profit nearly 50% higher. Am I right with that, Bernard? Those statistics?
Exactly.
Yeah, higher than Manchester United, which is unbelievable. Their debt. You remember, Manchester United had a debt of nearly 360 million. Arsenal's debt is less than 100 million.
Wow.
So they're prudently managing their books. Remember that they've off the pitch they've just invested in a huge Emirates Stadium, which has cost an awful lot of money, so they've invested highly. 41% of their income does come through match day receipts.
So it was a good decision to move from Highbury to the Emirates, because you get 41% from match day.
Yes,
which is a big part of the pie.
Big part, and of course the actual going from Highbury to the Emirates has upped the amount of people, around about 20,000 the capacity. That's what I'm trying to say. 39% comes from broadcasting, and 20% comes from commercial activities. So if you look at the financial performance of Arsenal Football Club, it far outperforms Manchester United. They don't have the same level of debt. However, they've the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And how many trophies have they got in the cabinet?
That's the big question.
That is the big question. So, but Arsenal as a company, they're attracting top brands. The brands are interested in Arsenal primarily because of the heritage of the Arsenal Football Club, which has a lot of history. They have a growing support in China. 600,000 regular supporters visiting the Chinese website.
Wow.
So a huge following in China, along with 11 million Facebook followers, and
wow.
and also a top range of sponsors, including Nike, Emirates, Carlsberg, Airtel, and so on and so forth. So they have very
So
good
what is the
sponsorship.
training approach? What?
Well, Arsene Wenger has set out his strategy, and he is a strategist, not only a football strategist, but he's a business strategist, and he's a talent management strategist. And what he's decided to do is invest in what he calls youth development, the next gen competition. What he's thinking about already is, we spoke earlier in the week about this generational differences, Generation X, Generation Y. And Arsene Wenger is already looking towards the next 10 years in terms of what his team might be like and where some of his future stars will come from. So there's been a heavy investment in his youth team and the youth squad. And actually, Arsenal has a lot of connections with other youth teams from around, particularly in Europe.
Okay.
And they're using them as feeders into the Arsenal youth system. Arsene Wenger's made a decision that to build next Arsenal's team around young British players.
Okay.
Which is quite a bold move. Yeah. So it remains to be seen. But
hence the presence of people like Jack Wilshere in the team,
yes,
trying to build the team around Theo Walcott, and so it does make sense, because initially he started with French players.
Yes,
when he came in initially.
And of course he's a Frenchman himself,
exactly.
So he had a lot of connections, in the French leagues, and had lots of success with his team, of course, with Thierry Henry and colleagues in the past. 5 leadership lessons from Arsene Wenger. What are they? Well, Arsene comes at it slightly different than Alex Ferguson. His number one brand was make your name synonymous with your brand. This is what Arsene said.
Okay.
Yeah. Second one was a beautiful game is less important than a beautiful balance sheet.
Did he actually say that?
He did. He actually said that. And you look at the statistics of the financial performance of Arsenal, and that speaks.
A beautiful game is less important than a beautiful balance sheet.
Yeah.
Wow.
So some of the Arsenal supporters were saying, well, maybe Arsene needs to get into his pocket and spend some of that money, and get the team where it should be, back in the, back challenging for the major titles. So, so we'll see what happens. Number 3, invest in youth, but don't expect loyalty. Again, it's this Generation Y philosophy.
Okay.
Nothing is long term. It's all about short-termism. Number 4, it's great to have a philosophy, but don't stick to it too rigidly. So change management, isn't it, sometimes?
Arsenal needs to change. Arsene Wenger needs to change.
Okay.
I'm sure that's what Arsenal fans will be saying.
Yeah. Well, is that the case? Maybe it would be interesting to see what some people think about that. And also, Arsene goes on to say, delegation is not a sign of weakness.
Okay.
And I think he's right with that. If you can delegate well, it's a sign of strength. And you can build on these things. So these are 5 leadership lessons from Arsene Wenger, straight from his own views.
Interesting.
Arsene Wenger was asked, what does he look for in a young footballer? What are the key talents? In the world of business, CEOs were recently surveyed across something like 2,000 CEOs globally, and they were asked, what sort of 3 competencies do you want for your employees of the future? And 3 things came out in the world of business. I want staff who are creative, I want staff who are innovative, and I want staff who are showing entrepreneurial spirit.
Okay.
So let's move into what Arsene's looking for in his players. He wants players who are motivated, who show good motivation. He wants players who have intelligence. He often used this word, intelligence. He's an intelligent player. He has quality. The third one is he wants commitment. Now, commitment might go against the grain against Generation Ys, because he earlier said that you cannot expect the younger people to stay with the club forever.
So there's actually a disconnect between what he wants in a footballer and his strategy, which may not necessarily thrive on loyalty.
Absolutely.
But on a quick turnover. But that's an interesting thing to pull out.
Yes. And, if we look like 2 of his former stars, Cesc Fabregas.
And then Sami Nasri.
And Sami Nasri.
And
Van Persie to an extent. He wanted the commitment from them, but unfortunately they didn't live his dream to the end. They left. They
left to greener pastures.
They left for greener pastures, and this happens in the world of business. You'll try and retain your top talent, but sometimes they will leave you for greener pastures.
Interesting point about motivation. A lot of the players he brings seem to be from very difficult backgrounds, and such players tend to be typically more highly motivated than players who've had it easy in their youth teams, and I think it's a very important, a very important observation to make.
Yeah, and I think motivation, comes from, maybe people who maybe are not as well educated as say other people.
Exactly.
Because that may preclude them from say having a career in business. If they're highly technical and a quality footballer, they will have the motivation to succeed.
Exactly.
Because if you're a top class footballer in today's world, you can make a good living, as we all know.
Yeah. So that's Arsene Wenger. Anything else on him?
Well, just a little bit before we move on to the next club, but he has his own training and talent management approach.
Mm-hmm.
He says, number 1 point, these are his views. Let success not get into your head, nor failure into your heart. These are his own words. Yeah?
Let success not get into your head, nor failure into your heart.
That's what he's saying.
It's quite profound.
Yeah. Number 2, he says, smell the air and adapt to the new wind. So if you get a whiff of something good, adapt to it. Yeah. And sometimes it's about changing the way that you did things last time, and maybe looking at things slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing, Generation Y, according to Arsene, think, and Generation Y, as we all know, is the millennials. And remember, on our previous interview, we said that by 2020, 50% of the people coming into the workforce will be Generation Y. Arsene's take on Generation Y is simple. He says, Generation Y think loyalty is a smart card program.
They have no idea or concept of loyalty. That is the point. This is still the Management Development Month with Michael Porter. We're trying to understand management from a football perspective using the Big Four in England. He's discussed Man United, he's on Arsenal. Before he moves to the next team, which I suspect will be Liverpool, what was Arsene Wenger's best piece of business?
Well, he's a shrewd businessman. He's a shrewd and canny manager, and he has stickability, and he's still in charge. But his best business deal, well, there's two, but the first one, of course, Cesc Fabregas. Joined Arsenal as a 16-year-old boy into his academy, and this is the same academy that Arsene now is trying to develop with more Cesc Fabregases. Well, he joined for free, but he was sold for 30 million to FC Barcelona in 2000.
Pounds.
30 million pounds.
Wow.
Which is 90 million Ghana cedis. So, it's an awful lot of money and a good investment. However, the question is, would he have preferred Cesc Fabregas to stay rather than leave? That is another question. His second piece of business, of course, was surrounding the recent transfer of Robin van Persie to Manchester United. Van Persie signed for Arsenal back in 2004 for a small fee of 2.7 million from the Dutch club Feyenoord. Last year, 2012, he was sold to Manchester United for a transfer fee of £22.5 million, with a clause of an extra £1.5 million if Man United won a Premier League title or European Champions League title in the next 4 years. And of course they've won it this year. So that transfer fee now has gone up to £24 million, which is something like 72 million Ghana cedis. An awful lot of money. But of course Van Persie is already paying dividends for his new club.
Interesting. So that was Arsenal.
That is Arsenal.
So let's go to my team, Liverpool.
So this is Bernard's team, Liverpool, a team of passion, a team, unfortunately, of yesteryear, but on its way back. But I think on its way back,
You actually said that.
Yeah, sorry, Bernard. And of course, Liverpool is very dear to me, having studied my university there, and the Liverpool people are great people. And I know here in Ghana there's lots of Liverpool fans. So let's hear about what Liverpool, how they compare. Well, Liverpool, they've had a lot of success. If we look back to yesteryear, names like Bill Shankly and Bob Paisley were when you mentioned those names, it was success. I remember the days when Liverpool had 11 players, all whom were Scousers or Liverpudlians. Yeah. And the one person they had on the subs bench was probably somebody from Manchester. And that's the way it was run in yesteryear. It was such a strong brand. Their owner, they've won the Premier League. Premier League 12 times. In the Premier League, on 12 occasions they've been in the top four in the last 20 years.
Okay. Yeah, they haven't won the Premier League in the past 20 years. The last time they did was before it became the Premier League.
Yeah, the old Division 1.
So we're happy with the top four now, just being in the top four.
Yeah. So that's the challenge. Now, Liverpool historically always had a manager for a long time, but that seems to have changed. And in the last 25 years, they've had 9 different team managers. The most current one is Brendan Rodgers, who took over in June 2012, having successfully managed Swansea City well, and he's now at Liverpool. He's going about change management at Liverpool. For those Liverpool fans, you'll notice that the change of play has become more like Barcelona than Liverpool of old. So he's got his own coaching methodology. The financial analysis of Liverpool could be better. 42% of their income comes from commercial, and 36% comes from broadcasting. The rest comes from match day. And I suppose to a certain extent your stadium will be full if your team's winning every week.
And of course they could do with a bigger stadium.
A bigger stadium. There's talk about moving from Anfield, but there's a lot of history and passion associated there. But ultimately someday a business decision will have to be made, and I think economies of scale will make them move. In 2011 Liverpool unfortunately made a net loss of nearly £50 million, and they've been criticised for not having not having as many quality players as they used to have in the past. However, it's changed with the introduction of a few players, in particular Luis Suarez, who I know is not that popular in Ghana for various reasons. But whether you like him or not, he scores goals. And the problem is he sometimes lets himself down little bit.
He bites people.
Yeah, he bites the hand that feeds him. So we have to be careful.
Yeah,
but
true.
But certainly he's a goal scorer, and Liverpool have got some very, very big sponsors: Carlsberg, Standard Chartered Bank, which have a presence here in Ghana. Along with Jack Wolfskin and a number of others.
Okay.
As a company, Liverpool, they are a global brand. In April 2010, the business magazine Forbes ranked Liverpool as the 6th most valuable football team in the world.
Wow.
6th most valuable football team in the world. And the club's trademarks and associated intellectual property rights are worth round about £150 million. So this is a huge undertaking.
Yep.
It's a huge corporate business.
Okay.
So what is Brendan Rodgers' approach to talent and coaching? Slightly different to Sir Alex, slightly different to Arsene Wenger.
Okay.
He has got the strategy that we should search for talent in our own backyard. So what he's saying is he's looking to look for more local talent. In fact, he says the Reds' 2 most experienced players were both born on Merseyside. And that's absolutely right. Stevie Gerrard, the captain, and Jamie Carragher, who's just recently retired. Through coaching, Rodgers ensures that every player knows his place in the system. So he's an effective communicator, he's a good delegator, and he makes sure that every player knows his place in the team, what is expected of him and what is not expected of him. When a player receives the ball, he should always have at least 2 options for an outpass. That's what Rodgers has instilled in his players. So as soon as somebody gets the ball, there should be at least 2 options, and it's about players making space.
This is typical Barcelona type of
play.
play.
Typical Barcelona type of play. And, it's proved very successful for Barcelona. Will it for Liverpool? Or do Liverpool need that extra quality within their ranks to make it happen?
They do.
And the final thing that Rodgers says is that he gives the players confidence to make those passes by taking the blame on himself when it does not come off.
Wow.
So if you see a Liverpool player making a pass and it not quite happening, he blames himself for giving them the autonomy to make that pass.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Okay. The most expensive transfer, of course, from Liverpool was not when Rodgers was there. It was prior to him. I think it was Benitez who was managing the helm then, and it was, they signed Fernando Torres from Atletico Madrid back in 2007 for a pinch, £20 million, and sold him off to Chelsea in 2012 for £51.5 million. That's a net profit of £30.5 million. The problem was, though, when he had a red shirt on, Torres couldn't stop scoring. As soon as he put that blue shirt on, what happened? I don't know. Anyway.
Okay, so that was Liverpool.
Yeah.
So finally you moved to Chelsea.
Yeah. Now Chelsea, big following here in Ghana. Maybe the biggest. I don't know. What do you think, Bernard?
I think Arsenal is the biggest because of the London connection. Man U possibly, and then maybe Chelsea and Liverpool.
Okay, all right. You know better than me. Yeah. But I know Chelsea, of course, when Michael Essien played there. They were.
But there are also new football supporters who support Chelsea.
Yes.
A lot of the experienced supporters are Man U or Arsenal.
Yes.
But the newer type are Chelsea.
Yes. Yeah. Well, let's look at Chelsea's business model. It's completely different to Man U, Arsenal and Liverpool. Completely different. So let's have a look at some of the background to Chelsea. Well, Chelsea, as we all know, Premier League champions. Tell me if I'm wrong with these statistics, Bernard. Premier League champions three times in the last 20 years. And European champions under the managementship of Roberto Di Matteo in 2012. Well done, Chelsea. And even this season, Europa Cup champions this year, 2013. So a lot of success. The owner, Roman Abramovich, bought the club 10 years ago in 2003 for £140 million from the then past chairman Ken Bates. They've had 19 team managers in 26 years.
That is
19 team managers. That's averages every 14 months. You've got a new manager.
That is some turnover.
You know. So change management at its biggest, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know. The interim manager, who is no longer an interim manager, of course, was Rafael Benitez, and he took a lot of flack during his interim stint at Chelsea. But actually, I thought he was very successful. He got them winning the European Europa Cup, and also finishing in the top four, so they qualify for the European Champions League next year. And of course, we all know that the special one, or Jose Mourinho,
now he calls himself the happy one.
The happy one, yeah, has recently rejoined the club as the manager. So, and already I think they've made one or two signings. I saw on yesterday. I can't remember the people's name, but they're already in the market.
Yeah.
Let's look at some financial analysis. Net profit last year, only £1.4 million.
But it was a profit.
It was a profit, yeah. It wasn't a loss. It wasn't a loss, but £1.4 million. 45% of Chelsea's income comes through broadcasting.
Ooh.
And when you think of the coverage they get on ESPN, on Sky, they play in a lot of games.
Yeah, because Chelsea is a very popular club globally, followed by possibly because of the Mourinho connection. I don't know. Yeah.
And I suppose the TV companies know that if we show Chelsea, the listeners are going to watch. 30% of income comes from match day receipts. So, financially, they've not made a loss; they've made a profit, albeit 1.5 million. But that's okay for a business.
Yeah,
it's okay for a business. Oh, they have some huge sponsors: Samsung, Adidas, Gazprom, Coca-Cola, Delta, Singer, Audi. To name but a few.
Yeah.
Huge sponsorship.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at them as a company. Well, they have a huge global brand, and I think over the last 10 years the brand has been enhanced. They're still at Stamford Bridge. Is that holding them back or not? Again, it's this issue around tradition, isn't it? Should we stay? Should we go? A 2012 report by Brand Finance ranked Chelsea 5th and valued the club's brand value at 250 million.
Wow.
An awful lot of money. In 2012, Forbes magazine ranked Chelsea 7th in their list of the 10 most valuable football clubs in the world, valuing the club's brand at 473 million. Chelsea's kit has been manufactured by Adidas for at least 7-8 years now. And recently, last year, Gazprom, which is the Russian connection, became the club's official global energy partner on a 3-year sponsorship deal. So let's have a look at their approach to talent. Now, 19 managers in 26 years. Remember, that's the background. So, according to their strategy, Chelsea put a high emphasis on interims, and contractors can have a hugely positive impact in achieving results or indeed setting strategy. So Abramovich's strategy, and it probably comes from him, it's driven by him, as any CEO would do, saying that, if we have good interims, we can be as successful as those teams that have managers for long periods. Now, whether you agree with one or the other is an interesting debate. So, does the success of a football team depend on the longevity of a manager, or in fact, can interims buy success? That is the question. Well, you have to, the proof of the pudding's in the eating, as I said earlier, and you have to measure that up against trophies in the cabinet. So I'll let you think about that yourselves. Chelsea have said there is a serious scarcity of talent in the local market, in the London, in the UK area. So they're leading to the second largest investment in global talent attraction in the world. So their investment is global. They're taking people from all over the world. Quality players are migrating to the UK to play to do their jobs, and actually this is happening in a business perspective as well. Young people, more so than ever a day now, are leaving their country of origin and going to work in foreign lands, and the foreign lands are looking for quality. It's not just in the football world; it's happening everywhere. Migration is happening everywhere. The largest investment, Chelsea has the largest investment in academy and apprenticeships to try to attract new talent. Yeah, it's a huge investment. Rafael Benitez, by the way, was criticised in his short tenure for failing to develop any local players. So, that's the Chelsea perspective, interim rather than long term. What advice did Rafael Benitez give to those starting out as a head coach? Well, these were his comments. Well, put simply, he said, you need to have passion and you need to put in the hours.
Okay.
You need to spend endless hours at developing yourself as a coach. You also, he said, have to have faith in your ability. Stick to your guns and do not falter, was his epitaph. And I think he's exactly right. And managers in the world of business can take note of that. You need passion and you need to spend endless hours at developing yourself as a coach or manager. It's the same perspective. The best bit of business that Chelsea have done, well, according to my records, I could be wrong because there's been a lot of comings and goings, but they signed Arjen Robben back in 2004 for just over 12 million and sold him in 2008 to Real Madrid for 31.5 million, which was a net profit of around about 20 million. Of course, there may have been better deals that have gone on in the past. So, Bernard, that gives you a nutshell.
That's exciting. So before you go, I think that the logical question that comes is, so having discussed the big four in England over the past 20 years, is there or are there certain commonalities so that you can say that for a team to reach this height of success, definitely from the stories of Man U, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, this has to be there? Or because of the differences in the circumstances, difficult to pick out certain similarities in the successes of these teams?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question, and clearly all four of these teams have had successes in over the past 10, 20 years. They've been successfully managed teams. I think the crux of it all is having somebody at the helm, whether they're an interim or whether they've been in charge for a long time, who knows what they're doing. And somebody who has the leadership qualities to be able to drive the team through. Sometimes it's about personality and presence and charisma, and being able to gain the respect of the dressing room, particularly in the world of football. But in the world of business, it's actually getting the respect of your team in the office. So I think the successes have really depended upon the leaders at the time. But one thing's for sure: you can't have success without talent. And I think the key to all of this is quite simple. If you've got talent and surround it by talent, you're going to get success. So this really epitomises what we're talking about in the world of business. To have a good business, you've got to have good talent. And you have to surround that talent with talent. And as Manchester United, as Chelsea, and as Liverpool are trying to do at the moment, and as Arsenal are striving to do again, it's all about talent management and quality. And also, from the team's perspective, pulling in the same direction, understanding their role, understanding the strategy, and working as a team and not as individuals.
I guess
these
you
are
could
the challenges.
Talk about for Arsenal as an example, balancing interests, because clearly the interest of shareholders for Arsenal may not necessarily be the interest of the supporters. And Arsene Wenger tries to balance that with moderate success on the pitch, but extreme success on the balance sheet.
Yeah. Well, if you look at Arsenal, out of all the top four, from a financial perspective, they are by far the best. By far the best. They've managed their books effectively, and you're right. Arsene Wenger has to appease the supporters, he has to appease the shareholders, and he has to appease the players and trying to retain the players. Now, that can be difficult sometimes, particularly if you're not meeting your targets. I think his target this year was to get a top four place in last season. He achieved that, albeit on the last game. But I think Arsenal really, the expectation of the fans, the players and the shareholders now is to move forward even further. and to build on the good business sort of stability that they've built up over the last 5-6 years, but all of a sudden to turn that success into silverware. So that will be the challenge, I think.
And of course, everybody will be saying eyes are on David Moyes now. Man United, after over 3 decades of success with one coach, how is the team going to continue that with a new man at the helm? So that's one to keep an eye on. I don't envy him at all.
Well, I think David Moyes, he's done very well with his management skills at Everton, albeit the resources he had, he did exceptionally well. He's a Scot, just like Alex Ferguson. Alex Ferguson handpicked him. And remember, Alex Ferguson's not going to disappear. He's going to be there watching every game in the stands. And I'm sure that, if David wanted some advice, Alex would be the first to give it, whether or not he wanted it. But if David comes in and for his first 3 games, they don't get a result, all of a sudden you've got a little bit of pressure. David will bring his own team with him already. So Alex's assistants have gone, and David's bringing in his trusted and loyal backroom staff. But then again, he's got to win the hearts and minds of the players. And remember, lots of these players have been used to Sir Alex, to his style. All of a sudden, it's major change management at Manchester United, off the pitch and on the pitch. First 3-5 games will be quite crucial, I think, for Manchester United this coming season, and also for Chelsea. Remember, they've got a new manager as well. The return of the special one.
Yeah.
So let's hope he stays on good terms with Roman Abramovich. And
in essence, no matter your team, no matter your background, you can't watch the Premier League without thinking, because for this kind of insight you've given us, we understand these teams from a better perspective.
Yes.
And again, there's no end to learning that something which is so entertaining like football can provide us with so many valuable management insights, which is incredibly brilliant. Michael, it's been really, really a pleasure having you these 2 days on the Management Development Month. Thank you so much, and let's talk again next time you come to Ghana.
Thanks, Bernard.
So that's it for today's edition of the Management Development Month. Our guest, Michael A. Porter, an international management development trainer, writer, speaker, globalist, and people expert, one of the leading non-academic global training and management development consultants, having worked in an advisory capacity for many companies. Now, he's working on his Ghana office, and I'm sure by the time he leaves Ghana, he would have had his Ghana operation fully established. My name is Bernard Avle, and that's it